It's Friday in Tryon, North Carolina, and have you ever had to make decisions? Now, most of the time when we make big decisions, we're pretty quick to ask God about it. If we're talking about taking a new job or moving or buying a major item, we usually ask God. But what about on the little decisions? What about little things? Buying a tire, buying a battery, or uh, deciding whether or not to get involved in an event or an organization. Do we talk to God about that? Well, you might want to read through again Joshua chapter 9, for you see a lot's going on. Joshua has been very obedient to God, and he's been very careful to talk to God, following God's instructions to take Jericho. Got a little careless on Ai, but nevertheless, once he found the sin in the camp, he straightened that out and took Ai. And in chapter 9, we follow right behind that with the fact that the kings to the south formed an alliance and decided they were going to fight against Joshua. Not only that, but some of the leaders over in Gibeon decided that they would be very crafty. And they had heard all about Joshua and their knowledge of Joshua's God. And so they decided to be so crafty that they would make it look like they had traveled a great distance. They made sure that their clothes were dirty. They made sure that their flasks of water were empty and that their bread was stale and that they had traveled a great deal of distance. But if you look on the map and you put Jericho and Ai in conjunction with Gibeon, you'll find that it's less than 30 miles. Not a great distance, not as they reported to Joshua when they got to Joshua. They came to him and they said they wanted an alliance. They wanted to they were willing to be slaves of the Israelites, but they wanted peace. And Joshua came right out and asked them and said, "Are you living on the land that God has given to us?" And they said that they had traveled a great distance. Just look at their clothes, just look at their food, look at their water containers, and they would know that they lived a long way away. Joshua and the people of Israel did not ask God. You'll find that clearly stated in verse 14. They did not ask or counsel with the Lord about whether they should make an alliance with these people. You remember God's instruction was for Joshua to drive the people out before him, take the land completely. But because they didn't talk to God and God didn't have a chance to say to them, "Don't make this alliance," they made an alliance with these men from Gibeon. And shortly thereafter, they found out that these people were from just 30 miles away and right in the middle of the land that they had been given to occupy and to live in. There's a lot of good wisdom and a lot of good, interesting lessons that we can learn from what happened here. Because you see, Joshua and his men were men of integrity, and because they had made an oath under God that they wouldn't hurt these people, they were forced to keep their end of the bargain. Now, the Gibeonites kept their end of the bargain for at least a generation. They were slaves to the Israelites. They hauled water and they cut wood and did the things they were supposed to do during that generation. But if you look on further at the story of Joshua and his conquest of the land, it became a problem when the Israelites grew in numbers that the Canaanites remained in the land. They didn't have enough land because the Canaanites were occupying what God intended for them to have. There was also a problem in the fact that there was a great danger of intermarriage with the Canaanites, which were the people from Gibeon. And not only did they have the problem of the possibility of intermarriage, but they also had the problem of the pagan influence. A lot of very bad things that caused a great deal of heartache and pain for the Israelites, all because they didn't ask God whether or not they should enter into this alliance. It was really interesting as I looked at the story. It has some lessons for the Gibeonites as well. They sought peace and freedom and a way of being able to survive, and what they wound up being was slaves. They were slaves to the Israelites. It tells us clearly in Proverbs, a lying tongue will catch up with you, and it did with the Gibeonites. But they became slaves to the Israelites. What they wanted the most was peace and an easy life, and what they got was slavery. For the nation of Israel, they had this bad influence living in their land and a shortage of land because they had left the Canaanites in it. A lot of things happened, didn't it, out of just a simple thing of asking God, should we enter into this alliance? A lot of times when we make decisions, we need to be sure that we've asked God, even though it seems like an insignificant decision, like buying a tire, or like buying a battery, or changing cars, or changing jobs, or whether or not we should watch a certain type of program, read a certain type of book. All of those decisions we ought to be talking to God about, because the consequences of doing something that's not in God's perfect will, even if we've been tricked into it, are pretty severe. And God will give us a discernment if we'll just ask for it and know who our real friends are and who our enemies are. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a good day.